your baby dragon could hitch a ride on someone else's dragon. That's the part of 8 Dragons that immediately made me go, okay, wait, that's adorable and also kind of clever. Today I'm reviewing 8 Dragons from Wonderbow Games, a fantasy board game coming to Kickstarter on June 9th. One quick note before we get into it. This review is based on the prototype version I played, which means components, rules, and final details may change before the finished game. I'm Nicole, the Cozy Gamer, and around here we love games that feel whimsical, welcoming, and just clever enough to make your brain happy. Let's talk about 8 Dragons. Before we get into how it plays, here are the quick facts. It is published by Wonderbow Games. It plays 2 to 4 players in about 40 to 60 minutes, and it's coming to Kickstarter on June 9th. For playtime though, I checked the final campaign page because prototype timing and final details can change. But from my play, this is not a tiny filler game. It has a fuller strategy game feel with movement, layer building, missions, and endgame scoring. And at its core, 8 Dragons is a fantasy board game where you play as dragons flying around 2 kingdoms. This board has this figure 8 path, which gives the game a really fun table presence. You're flying around, visiting different locations, collecting tiles, gathering treasure, and building out your own dragon lair. And the goal is very dragon-coded. Hoard the most gold. That's it. Be the best little treasure hoarding dragon that you can be. And what I liked right away is that this theme makes sense. You're not just moving around the board because the rulebook told you to. You're flying, you're picking up baby dragons, you're visiting villages, collecting shiny things, and expanding your lair. And it all feels connected to the fantasy of being a dragon. Here's a quick version on how the game plays. This is not a full rules teach, but it should give you the basic ideas. On your turn, you're going to move your dragon around the figure 8 board. You have to move at least 1 space, but you can move further depending on where you are and how far you want to fly. As you move through the center of the board, baby dragons called wormlings can jump onto your dragon and form a swarm. And this is where the game gets really cute. The wormlings do not have to belong to you. Your baby dragons might hitch a ride with someone else, or someone else's baby dragon might hitch a ride to you, which means even when it's not your turn, your pieces might still be moving around the board, helping you collect things. And after your dragon lands, the dragons and the wormlings that moved activate the locations that they landed on. Different locations give you different rewards. Gold, layer tiles, treasure chest, merchant tiles, or ways to move wormlings around. There's also pushing, which adds fun movement interactions, but I'm not going to fully teach that here. After the board part happens, anyone who gained tiles gets to add them to their own layer. That's the personal puzzle part. You're placing tiles to build connected chambers, collect artifacts, complete missions, and score more gold. The game ends when certain tiles stacks run out, and then everyone scores their gold, missions, treasures, and layer bonuses. Most gold wins because, again, dragons. The biggest thing that stood out to me after playing was the wormling system. The baby dragons give the game so much personality. I love that idea that these little dragons are just launching themselves onto passing dragons like, hey, take me with you. It creates this funny table feeling where your pieces are not always fully under your control, but in a way that feels playful instead of frustrating. There were moments where I was watching someone else's turn because my wormling was attached to their dragon and I cared about what they were doing. That matters to me. I love that when a game gives you a reason to stay engaged even when it's not technically your turn, and 8 Dragons does that in a way that's really thematic. It's not just watch carefully because someone might take the card you want. It's more like, wait, where is my baby dragon going? And is this about to help me? That is cozy chaos, not mean chaos or stressful chaos, more like my tiny dragon child is off having an adventure and I'm hoping it works out. The other thing I appreciated is that the game has 2 layers happening at once, right? There's the shared board where the dragons are flying, pushing, picking up wormlings, activating locations, but then there's your personal layer where you're placing tiles and trying to build something valuable. I usually enjoy games that give me a personal player area because I like feeling like I'm building something that belongs to me. But sometimes those games can feel a little too separate, like everyone is just quietly doing their own puzzle. Here, the shared board keeps pulling you back in. You care where other dragons are. You care which wormlings are attached. You care what locations people are landing on. You care whether your pieces are about to benefit from someone else's flight. And that made the game feel more alive on the table for me. The layer building is where the puzzle really shows up too, right? So you're adding tiles to your layer, you're trying to connect open edges, build useful chamfers, collect right artifacts, and set yourself up for endgame scoring. And that's where the game asks you to think a little. Okay, if I place this here, does this help my mission? Does it complete chambers? Does it give me the artifact I need kind of way? And I like that. It gave the game enough strategy without losing the charm of the theme. Because yes, I'm also thinking about tile placement, but in my head, I'm also building a dragon cave full of treasures and shiny nonsense. That's exactly the kind of fantasy adventure cozy I'm here for. Now, what should you know before backing? This is not a tiny filler game. It has a cute theme, but there's definitely a game underneath it. You're managing movement, pushing, wormlings, location effects, tile placement, missions, and scoring. And none of that felt disconnected to me, but it does mean that this is probably for players who enjoy a little rule texture. If you want something super light where you can learn it in 2 minutes and barely think, this may be more than you're looking for. But if you're looking for a whimsical theme with an actual puzzle underneath it, that's where 8 Dragons starts to shine. I would also say that because there are several little systems, your first play might involve some checking and rulebook looking, but where does this wormling go? Who activates first? What happens when dragons get pushed? That's normal for a game like this. Once the rhythm clicks, the theme helps carry it. I think 8 Dragons is for people who like fantasy games that feel playful but still give you decisions. If you like tile laying, personal player areas, shared board moments, and games where other players' turns still matter, this is one to watch. I also think that this could appeal to people who love whimsical games with strong table presence, not necessarily quiet cottage cozy. This is more fantasy adventure cozy. Dragons, villages, treasure chests, trolls dropping gold because their sacks have a hole in it, baby dragons hitching rides with whoever happens to be flying by. That's a very specific kind of cozy, and honestly, I love it. It feels playful, charming, and it has a little bit of chaos, and it still gives your brain something to chew on. Since 8 Dragons is coming to Kickstarter on June 9th, I do want to give the usual prototype note. This version I played may be different from the final product. Components may change, rules may change, final details may change. If you're interested, check the campaign page carefully when it goes live. Look at the final components, pledge levels, shipping, timeline, and any rules for product updates. But based on the prototype version I played, this one has a really charming mix of movement, layer building, and cozy fantasy chaos. This is a whimsical fantasy game with more going on than cute baby dragons might suggest. And I mean, that's a compliment. The wormling system gives the game personality, the shared board keeps players engaged, the layer building gives you a personal puzzle, and the theme ties everything together in a way that feels memorable. For me, the standout is absolutely the baby dragons hitching rides. That one idea makes the game feel different, and it creates those little table moments where everyone is watching to see where the swarm is going next. If you like fantasy games, tile laying puzzles, and cozy chaos with some strategy underneath, I think 8 Dragons is worth keeping an eye on when it comes to Kickstarter on June 9th. And now I need to know, would you rather be the giant dragon flying around the kingdoms or the tiny wormlings hitching a ride and causing problems? Tell me in the comments. I'm Nicole, the Cozy Gamer. Play comfy, stay cozy, and find your joy.